if Popeye didn't have spinach out of a can, this is what he'd do with it. I love Greek food because it reminds me so much of grandma's cooking. It gives you that nice, comforting, tummy-hugging feeling, the exact thing you need after a tough day at work. But most of these dishes take so much time, and sure, grandmas may have that time, but most of us may not. So here is a Greek recipe that gives you that nice, warm, hearty feeling inside without much time or effort. Today, I'll be making Spanakopita. That is actually a Greek spinach and cheese pie. It's usually served in a huge pie dish, but today I'm jazzing that up by making it into little muffins. Okay, so before we prepare the spinach, just make sure that your oven is preheated at 180 degrees. Now I've heated up some oil here. I'm just gonna put in half an onion and some garlic as well. Now we want to fry this up till the garlic and onion are fragrant and the onion is translucent. Okay, now it's time to add in the spinach. I'm using fresh spinach today, but you can also use frozen spinach, it's completely fine. It can also be cheaper. And I know a lot of people think that frozen goods are not as healthy or they've lost their nutrients, but this is not true because spinach is actually frozen right after it's harvested, so the nutrients are locked in there. It is still full of vitamins. So if you use frozen spinach, just make sure that you thaw it and you won't have to cook it this way. Now I've just roughly chopped up my spinach and we just want it to wilt. And you might have to do this in batches if your pot is not large enough. All right, so now as you can see, all the spinach has cooked down, has wilted into this small little ball after that huge bowl of spinach. So what we want to do now is drain all the liquid out. We don't want our pastry to become soggy, so we want to make sure that all the liquid is drained out from the spinach as much as possible. So I'm going to do that over a sieve right here. Okay. So that's all in there now. You kind of want to lightly press it and you'll see that there's loads of liquid in there. Okay, so I'm just going to let this sit while we prepare the rest of the filling. All right, so let's work on the filling right now while the spinach is draining. I'm gonna add some feta cheese. This is crucial to Spanakopita. I've tried different cheeses, but honestly, feta works the best. So I'm just gonna put that in and you wanna crumble it up with your hands. I'm using flat leaf parsley for that nice grassy flavor and dill for that sweet lemony flavor there to add to the dish. Just wanna roughly chop that up. Ooh, smells so good. There's really no rule here. You can use thyme, oregano, basil, or even mint, spring onions, anything you have lying around at home. Okay, I'm just gonna throw that into the bowl. And today we're gonna add some lemon zest. It's gonna give that nice zingy flavor to it. After zesting a lemon, it smells super yummy, and I just chucked this into my fridge to freshen it up. That's a hack for you. Also, I've got sun-dried tomatoes. Now, this is not included in the traditional Spanakopita recipe, but I like to throw it in for some color, but also it gives a nice flavor to it. I don't like using too much salt in my cooking, so this adds some saltiness to it. And also you need some oil in your Spanakopita recipe. So what I've done, I bought sun-dried tomatoes which are in olive oil. So I kept some of the oil to brush it on later so you get the extra flavor from it. So I'm now going to add some pepper and just a touch of salt. Again, the feta cheese and the sun-dried tomatoes are already salty, so I'm just gonna give a little twist there. That's it. Okay, so we want to mix all of this up. Oh, look at that nice color. It actually looks like an amazing pizza topping. Okay, so now let's just check in on our spinach. We need to drain it slightly further. Gosh, looks like I've got spinach soup now. So at this point, if you just drain it over the sieve, it's not gonna get all that liquid out. So I would suggest to take a clean kitchen towel, or if you have a cheesecloth, we can use this too. Now I'm just gonna put all the spinach in there. And now's the fun part. You squeeze it with your hands. Go look at all that liquid. You know, I love spinach, but sometimes I really feel like I'm wasting money on it because I had half a kilo just now, which filled up a whole bowl, and this is all I have left now. But that's absolutely fine. It is worth it. So I've drained all of that. I'm going to now tip it in my bowl. Okay, put it in there. Move this aside. And I'm going to add 3 eggs. Now the eggs help it to bind. So there you go. Now the thing about spinach, it is full of fiber, but also it is high in iron. Really, really good for you. And some geeky tips here, but to increase the absorption of iron, you should pair it with foods which are high in vitamin C, and that's in the lemon zest there. So that increases the absorption of iron into your body from the spinach. And also on that note, there are some foods which interfere with the absorption of iron. So that would be foods high in tannins, such as black tea, for example. So if you have a food which is high in iron and you want your body to absorb that, try to probably wait about 2 hours before you have your black tea. All right, it's now time to assemble our pastry. We are working with phyllo pastry today, and there are some steps you have to follow, so look down at the description box to see what they are. Now I'm gonna uncover my phyllo pastry. It's a bit sensitive like popiah skin. You kind of have to keep it nice and damp, but not too wet. All right, I've got 7 sheets here. I'm just going to first cut it in half. Okay, the thing about phyllo pastry, it is gonna tear, but it's completely fine, and the messier it looks, the better it is, and more rustic. I kind of like that. So I'm gonna cut this into equal squares. So this really depends on the type of phyllo pastry you use, the brand, because they're all of different sizes. You get different amounts in a pack. So just cut to rough squares like this. So now once those are cut, just have a muffin tin ready, and I'm going to brush that with some oil first. Traditional Spanakopita recipes use butter, and the grandmas out there will tell you to use butter, but I just want to lighten it up, so I'm going to use some oil instead. And as I've mentioned, I'm using some of that sun-dried tomato oil that I had the sun-dried tomatoes sitting in earlier. Now we need to use oil liberally in this recipe, because if not, the pastry won't cook properly and you'll get non-crispy and just very raw dough, so that's not what we want. And the oil gives us that lovely golden brown color in the oven as well. So what we want to do now is oil our pastry sheets individually. Again, as I mentioned, you have to use oil liberally so that each layer of it cooks nice and then it comes out all nice and crispy. All right, so we want to brush that first layer with some oil. Repeat that for 4 other layers, so we want to have a total of 5 sheets. Now you can rotate your sheets each time so that it kind of creates a nice pattern. All right, so now we've got all 5 sheets there. We just stuff it in here and let it fit. So I usually fan out the edges, and I do make sure that those edges are nicely oiled. If not, they won't have any nice color on them. And this is why I rotate it each time, because it kind of gives this imperfect look, so it's kind of like fanning out. And repeat that for the rest of your muffin tin. So now that our pastry is assembled, it is now time to fill it up with the spinach cheese mixture. So very simple, you just scoop them in here. Now they're all filled up, and it's time to bake them in the oven for about 30 minutes or until they turn nicely golden brown. All right, time's now up, so let's go get them out of the oven. Ooh, they've reached a nice golden brown color. This is exactly how you want it. Now we're just gonna let it cool before taking it out and plating it. All right, I'm gonna plate this up with some cherry tomatoes on the vine, which I roasted with some olive oil, and I'm simply just gonna plate it here. Now you can do this any shape you want. You can do it the traditional pie way, or you can wrap it up into samosas or cigars, anything that you fancy. And these sound so nice and crispy. And there you have it, my Spanakopita bites, fit for any age, any occasion. Enjoy making them, and may the food be with you. Try this recipe at home, snap a picture, and tag me at TheCharlotteMei on Instagram. Leave a comment down below to tell me what you'd like to see next, and don't forget to click subscribe.
Hey Charlotte.
Yeah?
You should take me out on a date sometime.
Why?
You know, it would be nice if you took me out for a spin.
H.
I tend to use my jokes sparsely.
If spinach. Okay, wait, oh my gosh. Why do I put myself through things like this? Now I'm using flat leaf pasta. Take 2.